Hello folks, thank you so much for the comments. It looks like there will be some new videos coming. To begin this video, I'm trying to do my very first, at least I think this is my first ever voiceover, because there was so much noise outside when I was filming the clips that I just cannot use the sound. So let's see how this turns out. Anyways, a few words before we begin. Many of you asked about my work, but for now let's just say that I will make a whole video about that stuff. But for now let's just leave it hanging for a little while and focus on some other stuff first. So anyways, what I have been up to lately is during this summer I have really gotten into boat stuff. I really like working with small outboard engines and also boats. And actually, I recently bought a batch of 18 old two-stroke outboards and 2 boats. And in this video you will see the first of the 2 boats. So about this boat, it's a year 1974 Marino Mustang. And it's an old Finnish classic, but I think it's actually made from an American designed mold. It has some very classic lines, which I like very much, and I also like the color. I like pretty much everything about this boat. And it has actually, even though it says Mariner on the cowling, it is a Yamaha 55BE motor. I think Yamaha used to make the same model, which was just rebranded to use the Mariner name. Anyways, let's get to the actual work with trying to get the outboard running first. And when I bought the boat, the seller said it had a problem with the primer pump. Other than that, it was supposed to be splash ready. So yes, the primer pump was kind of hard. I think it would have actually worked, but I decided to bypass the actual tank and run from a little canister using some fresh fuel that I know it's good. So let's first inspect the fuel lines under the cowling. So from the quick connector, the hose goes to the filter, and from the filter, the line goes to the fuel pump, and then via T-piece, it splits to the 2 carburetors. And yes, this is a 2-cylinder, 2-stroke motor. It's a pretty large 2-stroke, I mean a 2-cylinder, 55 horsepower from just 2 cylinders. But at least it's simple. And yes, I do have a spare hose with a primer bulb, and I do have some fresh fuel. So let's hope we have some luck. So I'm kind of jerry-rigging the can. First pumping some fresh fuel through the hose, because there's always some old fuel left in the hoses, just to get rid of all the old fuel. And then I'm attaching the quick connector to the hose. And this is when I remember that holding the camera in one hand and working with just the other hand is not the best thing ever. So I had to cut here and do the quick connector clamping with 2 hands. Now pumping, you can see the fuel going in the filter. The filter is actually pretty clear. I didn't clean it, it looked so good. And this primer bulb worked well. So now we have fuel. And before I started the startup trials, I wanted to verify that we have spark. When I was looking at the boat at the seller's place, we already did a compression test. And you can actually see some previous compression test results in bars written on the engine block. So the compression was good, I already know that. And the spark plugs were pretty much new. So let's see where the battery goes. And right there we have a little indent for the battery. And we have some electric connections which do not look too bad to me. Could be much worse on a boat. You sometimes see some really horrible wirings. But on this boat it's pretty clean, and also there's not much of it at all. Just a few switches and some small stuff. And yeah, I was doing some steps back and forth with the batteries. Only when I got the first battery in, I remember that there's an old terminal stock. And I replaced the battery with another one. I always like to do some of these taps before I fully connect the wires. If I see a lot of sparks, it's always a bad sign. So I find that to be a good way to test for shots. Just giving a few taps on the terminals. I'm not screwing them on yet. And we do have something happening. We have a voltmeter which is reading quite low, and I was wondering why that was. By the way, now we have sound back. There's only a little bit of a lawnmower sound. I was testing lights. The front light works, and the bilge pump works. At least it makes some sound. The rear light works, and also the bow navigation lights worked. So all the lights are working, which is great. And running the lights for a while, the voltage dropped even lower. And I wasn't sure what was actually going on. When I was switching stuff on and off, sometimes the voltage got to like 12.5 volts, even though it was initially 12.0. So I already felt like there was something a bit weird going on with the electricities. Yeah. Okay, the emergency stop switch in place, and I tried turning the key, and there is some life in the motor. That little knob is the choke, and it works. And then I tried to crank the motor, and it does crank, which is a very good sign. Ready for the spark test. I used a screwdriver to jump the solenoid so that I could run or crank the motor and see the spark. we have spark and we have fuel, so we should start. Spark plug tag on, and I also put my Mickey Mouse ears on to feed some water. And now I think we're all set for the first try. And I was quite disappointed here because the engine wouldn't turn over very well. So I guess what had happened was the voltage was just too low on the battery, so I thought it was empty. But then I found out that one of the terminals was loose. I mean, when the wire goes to the terminal, the wing nut was loose. And it was also pretty hot in that spot, so a lot of resistance in that spot. I decided to try with the same battery again after tightening the terminal. Main switch back on. And let's try again. We do have way more speed for the starter. But then I was confused because I didn't find the usual high idle lever on the remote control, because you have to give some throttle to the engine when you start it up, and I didn't find a way to do that. But then I used ChatGPT, and it knew that on these older you have to pull the lever out before you give the throttle. And we do have a running motor. I did actually have to switch to the other battery because the first battery was too low. It didn't run fast enough. And here I noticed that the e-hole isn't being much water at all. So there should be a good strong stream of water coming out of the hole so that you can see that the water pump is running. And that's not the case here. But I decided to run the motor for just a while to get a feel for it. So again, just to see if restart would also work well, and it did. It starts right side up. So the motor feels pretty healthy. And now I was blowing some air into the telltale hole. Right away, the telltale got a little bit stronger. Later, when I give it some throttle, it feels something more. So I think the water pump is healthy. dampens the
Okay,
exhaust noise.
I'm about to drain the oil. So, how you drain the oil from the lower unit, you have an upper check plug here, and the drain plug, and the fill plug is this. So, what you do first, you crack the screws open. They're often really tight and really hard to get off. I have this beefy screwdriver that has a 10mm hex. So I can apply a pretty good amount of force. But these ones were actually quite loose, which makes me kind of scared to see what the oil looks like inside. If everything is good, it's usually green or even brown or blackish. But if it's white and watery, that's a really bad sign. That means that water is somehow finding its way in the gearbox of the lower unit. The drive shaft of the engine is coming right down, and then we have a gearbox in here that turns the power this way. And there's also a forward and a reverse gear. So that needs to be well lubricated, of course. Anyways, let's crack the screws open and see what the oil looks like. Let's see if I can do this one-handed. Okay, let's go with the bottom plug first. Fingers crossed that it's clear oil. Oh yeah, that looks good. Let's see if opening the check screw helps to drain the oil out faster. Yes. Yes, this is good oil. I'm really happy to see that. Looks like they have a tiny magnet on the drain plug. To me that looks pretty good. There is a little bit of something, but I guess that's pretty normal. It's an old motor anyways. Okay, let's let the oil drain. I guess while it's drying, I think we can start to clean the boat. It's pretty dirty, but I think it will clean really nice. It has been sitting under a tarp for 2 to 3 years, I think. There's a sticker. This is like a maritime rescue thing, 2021. So at least year 21, we know that it was in the water. Okay, let's bring out the pressure washer and see if we can make the majority of the crud disappear. About the inside of the boat, I don't think I want to get too much water in there. So maybe I will just pressure wash the deck and the sides and maybe just wipe the inside. Okay, I tilted the motor down to get the last drips of oil out. Now I'm gonna put some new oil in, and for that I have this little pump on the bottle of gear oil. I don't know how much oil there's gonna be. Maybe my little bottle isn't quite enough, but I got more, so no worries. And while it was draining, I emptied the inside of the boat, and I think I am going to pressure wash the whole thing. To me it all looks pretty good. The floor and everything. It's really solid for this is actually a I just figured out that this is actually a 52-year-old boat. It's really old. I think for the age it's pretty clean. I also took out the floor panels. I think I'm gonna also give them a light pressure wash and see how they turn out. I got the hose screwed in and now it's time for pumping. Actually, the oil was so clean, I mean the oil that came out, that if I knew it was that good, I wouldn't have changed the oil at all. But of course, before you drain the oil, you don't have any idea what it's like, so I had to do it anyways. And before I did my first ever gear oil change, it was always a mystery to me how you can pump the oil from the bottom hole. Uh-oh, I'm running out of oil. Anyways, you pump the oil here, not here, because if you put it in here, you will be left with air bubbles inside the gear case. So when you remove the hose, how does the oil stay inside there? And that is because when you pump in and the oil starts flowing out, you know you have enough oil in, then you screw in the top hole, the top bolt I mean, and that doesn't let any air in, so no oil will drain out. That was actually the reason when I opened the bottom plug, almost nothing came out. If it doesn't work, if you do screw in the plug in the top, you remove the hose and there is some oil coming out. That usually means there's an air leak somewhere in the prop shaft seals or the drive shaft seal or the gear shaft seal. There's a leak somewhere and you should fix that. But I think this lower unit is actually really healthy. Anyways, let's see if I can tilt the bottle and get enough oil in. Okay. We got oil coming out of the level hole. It actually reads oil level. So we will put the plug in. You do have to be fast. So let me put the camera away so I have two hands. I will just tighten the plug, remove the hose, and tighten the bottom plug too. Alright, the oil change is done. Ready for pressure washing. I have a piece of crap Black & Decker made in China, super cheap pressure washer. It leaks. I'm gonna get wet, but whatever, it's the summer now. The weather is really nice. So let's see if the pressure washer can do something. Sometimes it works like magic, sometimes it doesn't really remove anything. But I think now it's gonna work. Let's see. Okay, as usual. A problem with the washer. We will see what that's about. But anyways, it does work. It doesn't clean everything, of course. I'm gonna have to do some waxing and more cleaning, but I think I will get most of the crap out. So, let's see. Okay. I guess the magic worked at least a bit. Even if the boat didn't turn out much cleaner, but at least the daylight faded a little bit. Just kidding. I think it came out pretty good. There is still some stuff to be hand worked out, but it's like 80% better now. I also did the inside, and you can even see it through the windshield now. Also, the inside turned out pretty good. I'm happy. Hyvin menee. Siinä on varmaan joku naarmu. Ei haittaa. So I guess that was a pretty solid one evening's worth of work. So we got the motor running. We got the basic service done to the motor. We verified that much of the stuff is working. And we did a basic clean to the boat. So now what's left to do, by the way, I also cleaned the fuel tank. It turned out pretty good. So what's left to do is to get a new fuel hose with the new hand pump, the primer pump, reinstall the tank, fill it with fuel, add some 2-stroke oil, and splash it and do a sea trial. So I guess we will see that in the next part of the Marino Mustang project. But for today, thanks so much for watching, and we will see you again. Bye. Okay, a little outro. I actually gave the boat a final sponge scrub, and now it's really clean. There is something, I think this is in the gel coat itself, some like color that shouldn't be there, a mismatch of color. I don't know what that's about. You can see it all around the boat. It's not bad, but it is there. I don't know what it is. I guess I will give it a good polish next and see what that does. Anyways, now it's time for bed.